Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the CleanTech Lithium PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, attendees will be in listen-only mode. Questions, as usual, are encouraged. They can be submitted at any time. Just use that Q&A tab on the right-hand corner of your screen, type in your question and press send. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. If you give that your kind attention, I'm sure the company will be most grateful. And I'd like to hand over to Daniel Fox-Davis. Good evening.
Hey, Mark, good evening. And as always, thank you very much. Steve, good to see you. It's been a couple of weeks.
Nice to see you again.
It's been an eventful couple of weeks, I would imagine, from your side.
It has indeed, which I'm sure we'll get to talking all about in just a few minutes.
We shall indeed. So, well, obviously, everybody, welcome back to what we're trying to do is every couple of weeks, subject to the diaring commitments of the senior CleanTech Lithium senior management. We apologize for not having last week, but Steve was down in country in Chile, which is one of the things we're really going to focus on today. So rather than just going through the corporate presentation, the idea of these is to either give periodic updates or to focus on individual aspects, as we've done in the previous webinars. Now, obviously, since we had our last one, there was the resignation of Aldo, and with Steve taking over as company CEO. And while we have put out some other interviews, I thought it would be remiss of us not to touch base on that. And give Steve thoughts about how he's taken on the reins full time, although in many ways, Steve had taken over an executive chairman a while back, and we'll talk about how that was a planned transition. But it may be useful for everybody just to hear a little bit about that, Steve. And then obviously the big news last week was the renegotiation of the license agreements. So we can just maybe touch base on that, Steve, about that and the impact on ASX and bring shareholders fully up to speed on that. And then it would be great to hear about how your week was down in Chile. So, and then we'll, depending on timing, we'll touch a little bit about market pricing and the lithium, but I wanted to make sure we got through the key areas. So yes, so obviously Aldo has resigned, and congratulations on now becoming the company CEO and chairman.
Yes, well, that's going to keep me a bit busy. Yeah, no, it was a very sad time because obviously Aldo has done a tremendous job as co-founder of the company, bringing it on, developing excellent relationships with the communities, with the government, with the license holders at Laguna Verde, where we had the option agreement. But no, he's been having some personal issues, divorce issues. He wanted to raise some funds. Decided that he was going to take out a loan using his shares as collateral, expecting sometime not too long to be able to repay that loan, regain those shares. Unfortunately, it seems that the agreements he entered into, he didn't fully understand. And he is not certain or sure that he's actually the owner of those shares, or how many shares he still owns as security, and whether the lender has sold them into the market. We're carrying out an investigation, which is proceeding. We expect to have more news on that daily over the course of the next week. But clearly, doing any transaction in shares, whether it's selling a share or pledging or mortgaging a share from a director or a person of managerial responsibility, requires approval of the company, notification to the company, notification to the FCA. The company is obliged to make notifications as well. None of that actually happened. Aldo feels that he didn't really understand the requirement that when he's only pledging shares, not selling shares, he still had to follow the same rules. Unfortunately, those are the rules. They are transgressions of AIM FCA and MAR rules. Initially, when we heard about this the previous Friday, looked at the agreements that Aldo had signed, immediately suspended Aldo, carried out our investigations. Clearly, Aldo was in breach of company policy and AIM regulations. He realized that. He's very remiss. He resigned. from that position, which we accepted his resignation. He is still very, very supportive, of the company. He realizes that certainly damage, his reputation has caused us some difficulties, but he still wants to support the company in any way possible. Particularly in still making his relationships available to us. We do have a consulting agreement with Aldo to complete a number of transactions that we were engaged with, where Aldo was crucial to those transactions, and we'll talk about a couple of those later. But he does have ongoing relationships with the communities, where we signed the alliance agreement last year. We are going to be submitting our sale applications in the new administrative process. And Aldo, we believe, can still play a good part in that. Overall message, so I've been involved on a more day-to-day basis as executive chairman over the course of the last year. So I've jumped in as CEO as well to pick up all the reins and make sure that the company and the projects are progressing as normal, as rapidly as possible. And that's what I can assure all the shareholders. We have everything now. After my trip to Chile, I'm very happy. All the work programs are progressing well, and we'll push them ahead.
We'll launch into Chile in 1 second, and maybe explain that. But also, I just wanted to support that. Obviously, I've spoken to Aldo, and just for shareholders' sort of general knowledge, Aldo actually, back at the time of the IPO, had stated to the board that he wanted to liquidate something at some point. And we've spoken then that if we had demand of more than 10 million at the IPO, he was going to make a small sale to settle some obligations. Obviously, he worked for a number of years before the IPO unpaid. And sadly, like a lot of people, he'd gone through a divorce, and there was an obligation he had to make. And then obviously at the next round, we'd looked about it. We've said anything over 12.5 million. We ended up raising successfully 12.5 million. There was a small demand over, but it was felt that it would be not in the best interest of the company for Aldo to be coming out of anything. And then there were in discussion about doing a small placing in the ASX, which then got delayed. And foolishly, he met somebody who introduced him to a loan partner. And I've spoken to Aldo, and he absolutely believed he was just pledging his shares. He was going to get a loan because he said, I don't want to be selling anything. I believe we're really, really cheap. He says, I want to hang on to my shares and go forward, but I need to meet some obligations. So Aldo is excellent at what he does, but I think it would be fair to say in a bit, this is his first public company. And I think he was at fault for not taking more advice. But I think for all the shareholders, Aldo raised a lot of the early seed money into the company. So Aldo has a lot of friends and family in Chile. And he's very, very much committed to helping the company see its way through to getting into production and making sure that everything maintains with all the parties and relationships in the government ministries and the local communities that he has. And it may well be that we bring in more people as it goes forward, but he's absolutely committed to an orderly transition and to assisting, I know, not only the company, but you, Steve, in every way forward. So we're very much looking for that to progress, and grateful for his continued support and cooperation, and just sad that it had to go away it was. But so thank you for that, Steve. So moving on. So as part of that, and what Aldo was doing is we have the licenses change.
Yeah. At Laguna Verde, we said we control the basin, and that's with licenses in two parts. There are a whole batch of licenses over the central core of the Laguna Verde project, which are owned by a group of 7 Chilean business people. They're all professional, legal business people. And going back a number of years ago, Aldo and Jason, the co-founder, signed an option agreement with the license holders. It's a very conventional system in Chile, whereby you have an option, you take over the payment of the mining licenses. You're allowed to do the technical work, the exploration, in that area, and at some time in the future, obviously there's some small payments on the way, but at some time in the future you can exercise that option and acquire those licenses in the name of our CleanTech Lithium company. So it had always been the intention to do that, and as the project has matured, we've got more information after the scoping study and the economic merits. We wanted to do that. Then we were engaged with the listing process with the ASX, and first of all, you need to go through the compliance department. That they regard you as a suitable company to list on the ASX. And we met all their requirements. They understand the company very well. But there's one new regulation which has developed in Australia in the last few years, that new companies, new mining exploration companies wanting to list on the ASX needs to be able to demonstrate it controls the majority of its flagship assets. And the ASX regard Laguna Verde as the most advanced project. So we have some economic valuation from the scoping study. It regards Laguna Verde as our flagship asset. And what they are not comfortable is with ownership through a derivative. And they regard an option agreement as a derivative and not having direct control. So the eventual view of the ASX was that for CleanTech Lithium to be admitted to trading on the ASX, we had to demonstrate direct majority control of the licenses, of all the licenses at Laguna Verde. Now, certainly there's a whole batch of licenses we own 100%, the rest were under option agreement. So we've had Aldo to go back to the vendors that he signed the option agreement to explain the whole situation with the ASX, and then to renegotiate that option agreement into a sale and purchase agreement where we acquire direct ownership of the licenses. That was quite a sensitive and difficult negotiation. We ended up in a position of agreeing to pay for the licenses an initial payment of just over $1 million on signing of the purchase agreement for those licenses, where we acquire 100% of the licenses. And there are a number of stage payments over the next 5 years, with the majority of the payments due to the vendors will only occur after we are in production and cash generative after selling a certain amount, 10,000, then 35,000 tons of lithium carbonate equivalent. So it pushes the bulk of the payment when we are cash positive. And that's a better commercial deal to what we had with the option agreement. The option agreement was quite difficult, but because it said that we had to determine what were the commercially extractable reserves from the mining licenses of the vendors, and that was to be determined by a mutually agreed independent third-party expert. Yeah. And then look at what was the lithium price that there's been since the option agreement was signed up to entry into construction and the exercise of the option. And we would have to exercise the option and pay the complete price on the start of construction before we were cash generating.
So this ends up actually being, I mean, I know it was predicated by the asset, but it ends up being a much better, cleaner, yes, and fine deal for the company than we had before.
Yeah. So what we have is a better commercial arrangement for the company. There's also the provisions in the in the agreement. What happens if we, for some reason, default or don't make the next stage payments? And there is a mechanism whereby ownership of the licenses, to a certain extent, reverts back to the vendors. But the worst case is that 49% ownership of the licenses in a special purpose vehicle would revert back to the vendors, and in all cases, the company would retain at least 51%. But obviously, our intention is to pay all the stage payments and maintain 100% ownership. We've taken.
On that note, so just digressing, and I have had a couple people ask, because they're saying is that the CL is the license to extract, and then these are the license. Could I just ask you just to clarify the difference between what these licenses are for and grant you versus the CL license?
The mining licenses give the owner of the mining license the permission to explore and exploit all minerals in those licenses. The only thing they can't do is they can't exploit lithium from those licenses, but they have the right to use water which they find during the course of mining. They are able to apply for land rights. They have controls of anybody wanting to do exploration on those mining licenses. Whereas the SAOL is independent of the mining licenses, and the government's going through this administration process where they are looking to grant these SAOLs, these operating contracts, to parties to explore and exploit for lithium. And it's on those the same grounds, independent of who owns the mining licenses. The concern which a lot of people in Chile have is that this is going to cause some contradictions, some confusion, and potential litigation between the rights of the mining license holders and those who have the SAOLs but have no mining licenses. Because on those mining licenses, the SAOL holder may want to be drilling and exploring for lithium, and the mining license holders may want to be drilling and exploring for boron or other things. So there's a lot of room for confusion. And we believe it is the safer route to have both the mining licenses and the SAOL in place, so there's no confusion. There's no possibility for any litigation or any holdups to the development of the project. The government has recognized that this is an issue, so that we believe that in the current administration process, when people are expressing their interest in obtaining a SAOL in these various salars, the government will be very mindful to give preference to those companies that already hold the mining licenses on those particular salars. And I think the way that the administration process has been written requires companies to provide the background to any exploration, technical development work, technology, how they intend to develop the project, as being favored towards getting the SAOL. So I think in our two projects, both the Laguna Verde and Francisco Basin, where we're making application for the SAOLs, we have the mining licenses now 100% ourselves, which gives us the very strong grounds for the government to go ahead and award the SAOL.
I think well done all round, and well done to Aldo and all the team on the ground. And then, because my understanding was that the ASX is sort of anti the options, but one of the issues for the company was because it was this derivative option, which was based on a third-party evaluation that was based on, it wasn't like you just had an option where it says, right, we can exercise this for 5 years for X dollars at the time.
Yeah.
It was a complex one, which my understanding was the ASX felt you couldn't define what it was. It was potentially open-ended. If lithium price went to, $50,000 or something, it was a huge bill, and you had to pay that before going, and it was beyond what some people would necessarily understand. So this is much cleaner, much better. Now, obviously, this came about. This discussion started through the ASX procedure. So, where does that leave the company and the board's decision in terms of the ASX now?
We actually had a board meeting yesterday. We've sounded out our brokers, both Dan here and Canaccord, both in London and Australia. With the situation with the company not having a permanent CEO, as myself as the interim CEO, should we delay the ASX listing until we have a permanent CEO on board, or go ahead with the company structure as it is? And it was unanimous with our brokers and the board. That I've had a lot of experience in Chile over 30 years. I've been in the lithium business for quite a number of years myself. I've said I'm very happy to take on the role until we take our time and find the right CEO to take the company forward, that we should push ahead with the ASX listing as rapidly as possible, and that's what we are doing. Because we have a little bit of delay, we've had to get our accounts freshened up. So we have the end of year accounts for 2023 are being audited now. That will go into the prospectus. We're writing up the prospectus. Clearly, we've had a change in the license agreement, so we need new legal opinions being freshened up. We are freshening up the technical assessment report with all the work we've been doing on the metallurgy and the pilot plant and stuff like that. The aim is to file the prospectus towards the end of May, which should lead us through a 3-4 week process of approvals with the ASX, and should get us trading sometime in the course of June, and we'll be ASX listed at that time. So it's full steam ahead.
And so yeah, I will be decamping down to Perth and working jointly with Canaccord. We've had a couple of people ask about existing shareholders, and just to reassure all shareholders, the company's looking at various mechanisms, but there will be an opportunity for the existing people on the register to participate. It forms into wider pricing, so it won't just be to the new retail that we need to get to the minimum. We'll make sure that anybody from the UK and on the register that may wish to participate is given that opportunity to do so as well.
Yeah, and I just want to add one other thing which refers back to Aldo. No, I'd had the conversation with Aldo last year, obviously as the founder of the company and entrepreneurial. He's done a tremendous job. But I'd always said that at the appropriate time, we would look to bring on a CEO who had the demonstrated experience of bringing large-scale mining projects through the development process into construction and operation. And our intention always been to look for that person towards the end of the PFS and do the transition as we go to DFS and looking for the finance for construction. So where we are today with Aldo resigning, we're probably only 3 to 4 months earlier from Aldo sort of stepping away from being CEO than would have happened in the normal course of business. And clearly we'd had that discussion that the role for Aldo going forward would have been to step aside as CEO and take up a more corporate affairs, public affairs role within Chile. And he was very happy and comfortable with that. We're just a few months earlier now.
No, I mean, exactly. And I have sort of intimated on a couple of calls we had, because obviously, as well as to you, I mean, obviously, I've known Aldo now for approaching 2.5, 3 years, and he had the same conversation about a year ago. And again, you know, Steve, well, giving compliment on the line, as some shareholders are aware, I introduced the company to you, and I approached you to asking as chairman to complement his entrepreneurial skill set with somebody with a great deal of experience of putting companies into production and running large scale projects, and having been in Chile for 20 years. And Aldo often always said that the best thing I did was not necessarily raising the money, but helping to bring you into the company. And if you hadn't already retired, you'd probably be top of the list of who we'd want to have as a permanent CEO. But you know, I think you're very happy to do it as the interim, but you've been there and done that. But I think your experience in helping to define the skill sets that the company needs to bring into that role is invaluable. And as you say, it's like tech companies. You have the founder with a brilliant idea. And I think he did a phenomenal job in terms of getting the early money and actually coming up with the idea and getting the licenses. But it's a different skill set that is needed by the company to actually put the assets into production and oversee the significant ramping up. So on that note, yeah, you've just got back from Chile. So how are things on the ground?
Yeah, no, it was very interesting. Obviously, met all the people we have in Chile. Again, responsible for the various work streams. Explained the whole situation with Aldo, myself, stepping how we're going to work into the future. But the overall message is work is progressing very well indeed. Spent time going through the work with the drilling programs, with our consultants there, Montgomery, who are very, very good, very expert at working in these salars. Just to recap, they're managing the drilling program, the hydrogeological program, the pumping tests. We just about finished the drilling program. Pumping tests are ongoing. They'll be using all that data in the hydrogeological model and using that to determine the first reserve calculation, which we expect to receive in July. We've been designing the re-injection testing that we need to do at one point in time. And Montgomery will be doing the design of the extraction well field to take the brine out, to go through the DLE, and then the re-injection well field design to put it back into the aquifer, and demonstrating that at the production rate, which is optimum, we do not impact any of the surface features of the laguna and the hot spring, so no environmental impact on the surface. So that's a very important piece of work which feeds into the PFS. Then spend quite a lot of time with our engineering, our project manager, and Wally, who is the consultant doing the PFS, and looking at some very interesting things. It's not just a matter of engineering. First of all, it's deciding what is the product that we're going to be making. Clearly, we absorb lithium chloride from the brine onto the resin and elute that off as a lithium chloride pure solution. But then we have choices. We can either keep it as lithium chloride, we can convert it to lithium carbonate, we can make lithium hydroxide, all different products required for different batteries. And part of the PFS is assessing what is the right product or mix of products that we should be making. Then we have other decisions to make. Now we're up at 4,300 meters. Do we want all of the plant, all the way through to production of battery grade material, lithium carbonate or whatever, all at the mine site, where equipment gets derated because of the altitude? It's more difficult for people to work. People's performance gets derated up there. Or is it better to split the project and have the minimum amount of the project at altitude, which is going to be the extraction, the DLE, and the re-injection, produce a lithium chloride solution, which can be concentrated or crystallized, and then transported down to the coast, and have the purification and conversion plant down on the coast, where there's greater access to people, technical support, and there's less transportation of chemicals between the coast and up to 4,300 meters site. So we've been through all of those issues with Worley, with our and people, and shortly we'll be able to provide some very interesting decisions, which we'll put out in RNSs in the next short period. There's many other issues, but the engineering is going very well. We're getting very good information from our resin suppliers, equipment suppliers as well. So that's going very, very well. Spent quite a lot of time in Copiapó. Went obviously to visit the DLE plant, which we talked about in the past. We've explained that it was constructed and then commissioned. One of the reasons it was delayed is taking the decision. This is a sun resin pilot plant, but the decision was not to buy sun resin adsorbent, but to buy it from a competitor company, Lanshen, that our test work at laboratory scale and the work they've done at their pilot plant in Santiago showed it had superior performance on our particular brines at Laguna Verde. Now, obviously, sun resin were not happy with that, but they calmed down when we said, look, we're not committed to any particular manufacturer. If you can produce a better resin than Lanshen for the full-scale plant, go ahead. We'll send more brine to you. Carry on development work, which is what they are doing. But we've got the pilot plant up and running on Lanshen resin. They're feeding brine in, getting the eluate out. We should have an RNS in the next week or so on the performance. But basically, we are very happy. My meeting with the resin manufacturer, Lanshen, they believe that the performance was exceeding their expectations, and we'll give some results on that very, very shortly. After making the eluate from the DLE, and to reiterate, it's partly a concentration from the 180 ppm lithium in the brine. We get an eluate, which is going to be more concentrated than that, but it's largely a purification step. It's to eliminate the calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium from loading onto the resin and transferring into the eluate. Now, we expect to have at least 99.5% rejection of impurities, so we have a fairly pure eluate. We then concentrate that by reverse osmosis, and we've now gone through 3 cycles of the project. We are producing concentrated eluate after reverse osmosis and starting to accumulate that. We have signed an agreement. I think we explained in the past, rather than building the downstream plant to produce carbonate, which is a well-known process. There are existing facilities at a number of companies in North America. We chose to use 2 Canadian companies, Conductive Energy and Forward Water. They have a plant in Chicago, and we will ship this eluate in containers. There's an inflatable bag inside a conventional shipping container. We'll ship 24 cubic meters at a time. That'll be transported via Long Beach and then road to Chicago, and we will start the processing to make battery-grade lithium carbonate. We've already sent 200 liters for them to go through their finalization of the testing, the final design of all the impurity removal steps. So the plant is set up there, ready for the first delivery of our material. We are due to have the first shipment going 10th of May. That's the current plan. It probably takes 3 or so weeks, maybe 4 weeks on shipping and road transport to Chicago, run it through the plant. We should be making battery grade lithium carbonate by the end of June. No, that's our current time frame.
And then how often will you then be sending shipments to them?
We then plan to send 3 further shipments. So we send a total volume of, I think, 84 cubic meters of eluate. That's enough to make close to a ton of lithium carbonate, and that's plenty of material to start the introduction to potential off-takers and strategic partners, because initially they want kilos and tens of kilos for their chemical and physical testing. If they like the material, we come to an agreement and they want to have a potential long-term offtake agreement, they will want to do much further testing of the carbonate in their battery testing facilities, and they will need hundreds of kilos to do that qualification testing. So clearly we'll do the first 4 batches, and then we will produce lithium carbonate as and when we need to deliver to potential offtake and strategic partners. But the first four batches will give us more than enough material to start those conversations on offtake.
Now, you and I were having a chat the other day, and I hope you don't mind, but you'd mentioned having a chat with the downstream guys and how close they are from to Detroit. And I thought that was it's still a potential one, but I thought you just meant, this is all just good marketing, but do you want to just touch on what they were saying as an idea?
Yeah, no. So we've got both conductive and forward water. They're very excited, both to show off their technology. Certainly forward water with their reverse osmosis and forward water to concentrate the brine to a high lithium chloride concentration before the conversion to carbonate. They're very keen to drag the purchasing agents of the motor manufacturers to come and visit them in Chicago and see our brine, eluted brine from Laguna Verde going into the plant at one end, and this lovely white micronized powdered battery grade lithium carbonate coming out the other end. And they can see that here we are, a project in a free trade agreement country, can demonstrate we can supply battery grade lithium carbonate into North America.
Sorry, just for that, micronized being
made small and uniform.
Excellent. Okay, sorry, just for I didn't know the word, so I'm assuming that some of the others won't as well. Well, I think that's excellent. I think it's fantastic that being so close to Detroit and they've got all those relationships, it can only help garner further interest.
Yeah.
So that's
and that picture are our main guys in Chile. The guy in the middle, Rodrigo Rivas, is our metallurgical manager. Now he's worked 20 years for SQM in the Salada Atacama in the processing of the lithium brine there into lithium carbonate, both as a technical expert and a plant operator. And next door to him is Eric, who is our plant operator for the project there.
Well, very nice to see Eric. Excellent. Well, we very much look forward to having that and looking forward to the RNS when we do it. So we'll skip through some of these, and we've got some questions. I'll come to all of them at the end, actually. I think it's just an easier rather than go off from there. But I think we'd covered all of that off. Nick had kindly done a very good slide for us here. Actually, I'm going to correct myself. There was a question in the how long are the licenses for, Steve? And do they need to get renewed during the life of the project under the current scenarios? And would there be any risk that you get the seal you're producing, and then you potentially wouldn't get the mining license renewed? Is that the issue?
The way it works in Chile, when you start off, you get an exploration license, which is valid for 4 years. You have to pay an annual license fee, which is quite small. And the exploration license is valid for 4 years. You can then renew 50% of those licenses and give up 50%, or you can convert them to mining exploitation licenses. Now, the fee for the mining license rather than the exploration license is higher, but it's still quite small. And once you have the mining license, they are yours in perpetuity, provided you pay the annual patentes, the annual license fee. So you cannot lose them. Now, if you pay the licenses, they are yours forever.
Yours, yeah. Excellent. I think that was just the keyword going to reassure. Actually, I might be completely wrong here, but because if I remember, we had the key licenses back at the IPO, and it was either one of the lawyers or something that it was felt that we should go and get these extra licenses under option just so we had them, so there wasn't any uncertainty, which has then created some uncertainty because of where it was. For the core license we already had.
No,
it was us being no arrows on there.
The licenses that we've acquired were ones that we had under option. If you look at the laguna, and the brine in the aquifer is largely under the laguna and spreading out from under the laguna, and the option licenses are all over that laguna area. That's the core.
The core
and
was
we've
right.
acquired on our own
I
name the licenses around the laguna.
I remember.
So those mining licenses are very important to us.
Grand, and we now have them 100%. So
Yeah.
that removes that. So the government submitting the express an interest.
Yeah, no, I think this has now provided great clarity to the industry and to people who want to develop the lithium potential of Chile. I think we've explained the process. Companies have until June the 17th to ask questions and submit their expression of interest. There's a form which they have to do, requiring lots of information. Obviously, we have much more information than anybody else in the country on our two projects. Then on July the 7th, the government will then announce who is interested in which particular salars. Are there only one entity interested in a salar? Or are there multiple expressions of interest for a particular salar? The government will then express what they regard as their priority for taking forward into sales. Now, we don't expect anybody to express an interest on our two salars, because we have the mining licenses, we have all the exploration work, the pilot plant up and running. We can demonstrate that we're very much more advanced, and the government can clearly take the decision because they want to see 4 or 5 new projects in production in 2026 to push ahead the most advanced projects, and we are the most advanced projects. Then if there is competition, as there will be in a lot of the other salars, the government has to decide, is there going to be a dialogue with the communities, which can take under their auspices 6 to 8 months. Our communities are already saying to the government, there's no need for extra dialogue with CleanTech Lithium. We've had dialogue for 2 years. They've shown us what we're doing. We like what we're doing. And we've signed this alliance agreement last December that we will support them going forward. They support us in protecting our culture. Government, just get on and award the sale, and everybody will be very, very happy. So if there's no need for dialogue, then the drafting of the decree and signing it is expected to take up to 3 months. So once the government make their announcement in July, we'd expect them to say, yes, we want CleanTech Lithium to go forward with their 2 projects, and they are priority projects for us, and they'll be top of the list for evaluation and writing of the decree to award the sale. So 3 months after that, which is August, September, October, we believe that we should have the sale in place. But I think it'd be very important in July to get that government announcement that we are a priority project and we're proceeding into this CL decree stage. So that will give a lot of comfort to our shareholders, because obviously from last year, there's always consternation about who's going to be awarded the sale. Does it have to have majority government control? And the government's been very, very clear. They said there's only 2 areas which they regard as strategic: Atacama and Maricunga, where the government will have majority control. The other salars, there's 1 which Codelco has got and Anami have got 5. Again, the government is saying there's no need to have government majority control. Codelco and Anami can structure joint venture with other companies, whatever makes sense. And for the other 26 salars, of which ours, Laguna Verde and Francisco Basin, they say, look, there's no need to have government participation. You can go 100%.
Can I? Yeah, I can jump on that. I mean, I want to keep us to an hour 40, but one of the questions will come to the end, but now's an opportune moment, is it was pre-submitted by Pompey that the question was, Francisco Basin is actually, at least to some extent, a protected salar according to the announcement to the Ministry of Mining as far as he could see. How big is the risk that the CTL will not be allowed to produce lithium there? How does CTL judge it? But my understanding from my reading was that Francisco Basin isn't in the protected areas. Can I get you to?
Yes. What the government has said is that there are a number of salars which are protected from future exploitation. That still has to be studied, and there are a number of national parks and conservation areas which have already been declared, which obviously cannot be exploited. Now, in the Francisco Basin, the large area, the northern part of that is a national park, and there's a freshwater lagoon there. And we have mining licenses over them purely to protect. We've already had discussions with government that we have no intention of wanting to develop lithium resources in the national park area. All our exploration work and intentions are to the south of the national park, completely outside of the national park area. We could give up those mining licenses and not pay the patentes, but we've said to government we will maintain those mining licenses in place to ensure that nobody else can attempt to do anything in the national park area for any mineral whatsoever. So we're helping the government to protect the national park from any mineral exploitation in the future.
And I think if shareholders
and the government is comfortable that we submit our SAOL application for the Francisco Basin area, for the area which is outside of the national park, to the south of the national park.
Thank you. And just shareholders will recall that when we put out some of the drilling results on Francisco Basin, one of the wells where we're trying to define the edges, we couldn't do a volumetric on a complete radius around it because there was the restriction to the north of the national park, which is why we then implied that to the other volumetrics further on. But they can go back to one of the previous comments. Actually, Steve, before I jump on, this picture, is that us or just a generic picture of a mountain there? I need to check. I should check with Nick.
I think it's us. I'm sure it's us.
Yeah, I'll check with Nick in advance. Excellent. Right. So we're doing this stuff now with RK Equity and the Rockstock channel. Do you want to just give I mean, I've known the guys for many years. Do you just want to give a brief summary of who they are, what they're doing?
RK Equity, there's a couple of guys who started as analysts and developing a podcast specializing only in lithium. So they studied the market. They put out an annual, a monthly magazine analysis of the lithium market. They invite people to come and speak on their particular projects, and they've started this new project called Getting to Know You, where they want to introduce players in the lithium market with interviews about them, the people leading the project, and about the project and the countries in which they are working. And we were the guinea pig for them. So we were the first program in the Getting to Know You. Those are all the topics that we got covered in the interview. So everybody, you can go onto our website and Instagram. You can see this on YouTube, and you can see the guys behind RK Equity and the Rockstock channel. Every month they give a comparison of every single lithium project in the world, and they said that when they first started a couple of years ago, there was only 40 to 50 companies. There's now 150. So they compare the performance of all of them and the equity market valuation of all of them. So it's very interesting. I think they have 7,500 subscribers, and they're probably listened to by, well, I don't know, 20,000 people. About 40% of their subscribers are in Australia. And so it's very opportune to do this before the ASX listing.
I think the key thing there is, obviously, like any public company, you have to continue to market and get out, and we do things with proactive. And we do our webinars here, but this is very much directed towards our existing shareholder base. And the great thing about RK Equity and the Rockstock channel, it's just lithium. So their audience are people who are just keen on lithium and keen on the space. And as you say, they've got about 40% down in Australia, but they've got a strong North American presence as well. When we start putting out RNS about shipping to Chicago, I've known the guys for about 12 years, and I think it was a great thing to go and do, and hopefully you'll continue to do more of them going forward. Right, I'm going to whip through, just because we get to the questions at the end. There's a couple there. So this a quick one here is that, yep, investors can sign up to the Meet the Company for free. If they're not already seeing it, please do. Please, by all means, send that link on to anybody else that you think might be interested. We'll be doing another one in about 2 weeks for an update. We got a just on the down, we've got the diagrams here.
Yeah, we don't need the other slides, Dan.
No, that's fine. Right, let's go to some of the questions we've got here. So I'll deal with them in the order that they've come, actually, and then we'll close up. So Steve, I know you can see it too there. So the question reads is, how do we plan to finance up to the end of 2025? And would it make sense to look at a bigger interim financing? 20 to 30 million is the question, with low dilution, e.g. some debt financing, first small offtake agreement or similar, and then you could progress Laguna Verde and Francisco Basin until a strategic partner is on board. Now, we have commented on some of those questions on the previous financing ones. Obviously, we'll be looking at the ASX, and there's a requirement to do a raise there to get the required number of Australian retail investors as an ASX listing. And we have mentioned in the past that we are receiving interest from potential debt partners. But yeah, so I think obviously that you're limited as to what you could say without doing anything through an RNS. But do you want to just comment on your current thoughts on financings?
Yeah, no, we've always said that we have options on the finance. Clearly, we've gone to the capital markets in London and now ASX for this early stage finance. As we're more advanced, then the potential for debt financing comes in. As you can see with this license purchase, the first tranche of payment to the vendors. We put in place a convertible bond at very favorable terms, and that has potential for next stages of finance as well. Clearly, we are in discussion with potential strategic investors. Early stage, we have numbers under NDA. Those will continue, and I'm sure that will be a source of funding before too long. But I've always said that there's two things most strategic investors want to have certainty and have in place. Is one, the sale. That's absolutely critical. I mean, really, strategic investors say, we like the project, but let's see you've got the operating contract first of all. It's not like other countries that you have a mining license, you automatically can proceed to produce the metal product. Here, the CL is essential. They want to see that first of all. And also to have the PFS complete and published so they can see the technical design of the project, the resources which are available, and the economic value of the project. So those are the two most important parts, and that leads the way into strategic investment into the company. Late stage, post PFS, going through the DFS stage up to the need for construction finance. So yeah, we are very well aware that we do need financing up to construction. We have a number of choices, and we'll look at what is the option for the company at the right time, and then we'll inform them the market accordingly.
And I think also, I mean, just to be fair, that I know from conversation with you that we get approaches from potential sources on a relatively regular basis, and the more you move the project forward, and when you start putting out RNSs that you're actually producing lithium, and then you do things like invite the battery manufacturers or the automotive manufacturers. You'll be speaking, I think, in May at Palm Springs at the Canaccord Big Investor Conference.
Yes, yeah. So I think it's the 7th, 8th of May. We have Canaccord invite all of the mining companies they deal with, and lots of institutional funds, a lot of potential buyers of metal products. It's not just lithium; they're interested in gold and copper and other things as well. So it's quite a big event. I'll be speaking there on the project in a panel on the project in Chile, and what are the advantages of the company and investing in the company. And whilst I've already got a stack, I think 9 or 10 meetings with interested parties who want to further their knowledge on the company and potential participation in the company.
I think on that note, actually touching on this last on the CLN, I have to say also, just to be fair, it was Aldo's relationship that brought that in. I think these are incredibly solid and favourable terms for a junior mining company. I'm sorry about that. I'll give my apologies. So the other one that we were having is could you touch on Yamara as an asset and where we are on plans?
Yeah, well, basically on all of the project Yamara, on Francisco Basin, and the areas we acquired in the Salada de Atacama, we put a hold on all of that work because we believe the best use of the funds we had available to the company is to make sure we are pushing Laguna Verde ahead as rapidly as possible. So we decided to prioritize all our funds into the geology, hydrology, the PFS, the pilot plant work, the environmental work on Laguna Verde, because the most important thing is to get one project going. Having the design of the wells and the reinjection wells and the DLE proven and the design of the full plant, basically we would roll that into duplicating it at Francisco Basin and at the other projects. So when we have more funds available, we will want to go back into all of those areas and reactivate our exploration programs. Francisco Basin, we did get to declare a 0.9 million ton resource, but we didn't do the drilling that we would really like to do. We still need to go there. We put just one drill hole into Yamara. Not exciting results. We need to do more work there to decide how we go forward on that. The areas of Salada Atacama look as if they could be very interesting. We need to do work there, but at the moment it's all hands on the deck for Laguna Verde, and the rest is good potential into the future.
Months. I have two more questions to go. So one is on the ASX. You had a question of how does the ASX listing, where do we expect it on the share pricing? I mean, it's a slightly difficult question because there's a reason we're doing it that we can talk to, but the market will be where the market will be. But do you want to touch on that, or do you want me just to give some comments?
Yeah, there's really two main reasons for the ASX is that there's a much deeper pool of capital available for developing mining projects in Australia than there is, frankly, on AIM. There's probably 40 odd lithium companies listed on the ASX. There's a very good knowledge of lithium, both hard rock and brine and clay deposits. A lot of people have made a lot of money from lithium investment in there. And we can see the market valuation in Australia compared to the size of the resource to where we are valued at the moment. And there's a complete dichotomy. Our peer group in Australia is valued very much higher as a multiple of resource than we are at the moment. So we think that going to Australia, we will access those deeper pools of finance, and then also get a share price re-rating closer to our Australian peers. Now, we have our major investor, Regal, holding 15% of the company, has been very strongly urging us to get onto the ASX. So that they can see the impact on share price, which they believe will happen, and they will continue to want to support us and help us to introduce to other financing partners as we start looking for the construction finance in the rest of the world in Australia.
Can I add on to that, Steve? So I introduced the company to Regal back at the pre-IPO, and they originally came in at 9.9%, and then they said they would come and then they would hold their corner at the IPO, which they did. And then at the next round, they actually increased it to 15. And then they held their corner in the last round. And they've raised a lot more capital. I think they're running at something like 4 to 5 billion now. And again, subject to how things are going, but they've intimated in the past that we're one of their most favorite stocks in terms of being undervalued. They said they'd be very happy to introduce us to other parties in Australia, but a lot of those parties in Australia can only invest in ASX listed stocks. And he said, in other meetings when I've been down with Aldo in Australia, he said, when it comes to the time of the construction finance, they would potentially be interested in putting up the equity portion in relation to the debt portion, to actually put it through. And that would come out from other funds, but they can only do that for ASX listed companies. So it just to re-echo your point, it opens up a much broader and deeper pool of capital than London can just offer, particularly around lithium. I did an exercise several weeks back now, where I went through all of the lithium companies on the ASX and all of the analysts covering the sector. And obviously they won't cover CleanTech as a company when it's not on the ASX because they're going out to the Australian market. But there's something like 63 analysts that I'm now due to go and approach over the next couple of weeks to say, look, we are now coming to the ASX. And when you go through and you look at the institutional market involved in the peer group, there's something in the region of about 170 institutional funds that I can now go out and talk to say that we are coming to the ASX for very cheap. What I'll do is for the next time we have a presentation, Steve, I'll update my table of where the multiples are for the peer groups on the ASX, and where we are. I'm going to caveat that now that the ASX don't like doing that. They don't like companies doing that, but as a broker, we can do. And obviously, a lot of these projects are at different stages, and it's a very crude metric to use, but it can be quite insightful. as just where the trend might go. So hopefully we are expecting two things. One is to get more liquidity, more buying. That will hopefully lead to the share price increasing, and we're hopefully moving towards the average of our peer group globally on the ASX rather than just on London, where there's very few. And then last but not least, Steve, we touched on it back on the updated slide on the pilot plant, but Ian G was just asking what happens to the calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium you extract as impurities.
Well, the great thing about the DLE process is that we do not extract those impurities. The whole purpose of the resin, in the columns, is that it only extracts lithium. So all the impurities are staying behind in the brine. So we put the brine through the columns, extract only the lithium, and all those other impurities are staying with the brine and get re-injected back into the aquifer. And that's the important thing about this particular DLE process. There's no chemicals involved. So the chemistry of the brine that we re-inject is the same as we extract, minus the lithium. So we don't extract any impurities whatsoever, except minor traces which we remove in the purification process.
So again, just for my edification here, so you end up with 99.9, and our preliminary results have said that actually in that 0.1, it's very low in the nasties of the impurities. But I imagine that then just goes into the lithium and the different battery manufacturers. They just work out the chemistry as how best to use that, or do you sell it as 99.9 and then they further refine it? Or
no, what they tend to do is to look at the different producers and the quality of the lithium carbonate. We make lithium carbonate, what they make compared to others, and they will qualify you in saying your product meets their specifications, they will buy from you. If your product doesn't meet their specifications, they won't buy from you.
Fair enough. Okay.
And the different battery manufacturers have slightly different requirements, which is why they need to test your particular product and go through this qualification process.
But I would reiterate that the preliminary results were very positive in terms of where all products have some impurities. What was very encouraging was that the brine that we originally got was very low in the nasties, which makes it applicable and more desirable by a much broader use of end users.
Yes, absolutely. So the purer we can make it, the better we can sell to the majority of the market.
Well, very, very, very quickly, because we're running up on time here, but I'm just going to bring up a quick one as we do on the last little bits and pieces. Can you see that now, Steve?
Yep.
Okay. So so here we've done as our recent share price. Obviously, we had a bit of a wobble, but the good thing is we're recovering back up below where the last news results was. And if I bring up just quickly Lake Resources, it's just a peer group in Argentina. We can see how the rest of the market. So we had a little bit wobble down, and hang on, let me just normalize these to 100% so we can see as a relative one. So while we had our wobble and recovering, we can see a bit of the other sector in Argentina is still having some problems down from there. Vulcan Energy down here in Australia. See, Vulcan continues to do well after their financing. They've had a bit of a jump up since our last call, continue to steady out, which is showing some encouraging signs into the ASX market overall. And if I do the lithium carbonate, I did have this up, but I'm afraid I lost Bloomberg in the process of this. Steve, would you recommend 99.5 or 99.5? Let's just bring that up for a second. We can just see how we're doing, and we take away Lake and Vulcan. Some people like this, some people don't. But yeah, we can see here that the price is continuing to stay up at around, I think it's around about 15. In reality price, that's the index. But that seems to stay steady. So we've had the collapse off on the lithium price. We've had a bit of recovery, now staying steady, and we're hoping for that to recover back. There continues to be more analyst reports looking for the lithium market to go into deficit in the second half. And we're looking for a price recovery. And again, still a number of the major guys looking for to go out by 2022, some people talking about 25 by year end, which would be very positive for us and the stock. So lots to, let me just cancel that off, sorry. So, Steve, again, thank you very much. Wearing my shareholder hat, thank you very much for the time. You've got 101 things to do, but I know that many of the shareholders, including myself, appreciate these bi-weekly or tri-weekly sort of updates. It's great just to have the ongoing update, and particularly when you've been down on the ground. It's the sort of thing that you can't put into RNSs just because it's too long and too verbose. So we very much look forward to the upcoming RNS over the next sort of 7 to 10 days or 2 weeks, but certainly before the next announcement. And we will have another one in 2 weeks. I'll work on some peer group analysis, and probably we'll talk between you and Gordon and Nick, but maybe we'll have a little update on the ASX then as well. And then we'll check the timings on where you are for the Palm Beach one.
Okay, no, it's very good to get more information across to our shareholder audience.
Great. Steve, as always, thank you very much. Mark, thank you for your time.
Bye, everybody.
That's great, Steve. Daniel, thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could just ask you not to close the session, as I'll automatically redirect you to the opportunity to provide your feedback. If you'd be so kind to do that, I'm sure the company would be most grateful. Thanks again to everybody, and on behalf of the management team from CleanTech Lithium, wish you all a very pleasant evening.